I've been trying to understand Romani Latin American populations for the past 10 years and their representation in popular culture. And so when I received the call for papers, I was really interested in finding a Holocaust film somehow connected to the Western Hemisphere. And I found it. It's The Secrets We Keep. So I'll read for you all. Holocaust documentaries about Roma and Sinti have mentioned the Western Hemisphere in passing, as in Suspino, A Cry for Roma, and A People Uncounted. I will analyze The Secrets We Keep, which centers on Maya, a Romani Holocaust survivor who identifies an ex-SS officer after they relocate to the same American town. This fiction film is unique in its portrayal of Romani social integration in the Americas during the post-World War II era. After the war, many Nazis fled Europe, often assuming false identities and facing few repercussions, aided by lax immigrant screening processes and sometimes sympathetic governments in countries like Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay. In contrast, Romani people began to relocate before the war and continued to flee throughout the 40s and 50s. Fictionalized accounts of Romani Holocaust survivors in the Americas are scarce, and today I will present the only film I know. If you know any others, please let me know. Directed by Israeli filmmaker Yuval Adler, The Secrets We Keep was inspired by Ariel Dorfman's 1990 play Dead of the Maiden, which was adapted into the eponymous film by Roman Polanski in 1995. The play was situated in a country in South America after the fall of the dictatorship, while the 2020 film takes place in the south of the US. In Adler's film, Maya lives with her son and husband, Louis, whom she met in Greece while he was volunteering during the post-war reconstruction. The bubble in which Maya and her family exist burst one day in a park when she hears Thomas whistle. His presence is sensorial. Maya identifies him through his voice and sounds. These sounds trigger Maya's traumatic memories, and she decides to kidnap him, seeking answers about her past. Maya had downplayed her heritage to Louis. Different from the story she told him, she was in a German camp for 2 years because her entire family was Romani and not only her grandfather. They belonged to a class of craftsmen who worked with wood and metal. In fact, the reason she was not murdered was due to her skill set. Maya later reveals to Louis that after the concentration camp liberation, while walking back with a group of survivors, SS officers raped and murdered her sister Mira to work together with other women they were traveling with. Maya believes Thomas to be one of the SS officers. Although Maya crosses the Atlantic with the hope of forgetting her personal history, she experiences survivor's guilt. She can't sleep due to the overwhelming sense of guilt for surviving her sister Mira. She can accept what happened to her, but she cannot overcome the fact that she couldn't protect her. She wants Thomas to tell her what happened that night. Her memories are fragmented. She was hit, dragged, and raped, but she wants to know the reason she survived. And how could she run away and abandon her beloved sister? My analysis will focus on 3 key themes that I will contrast with other Jewish Holocaust films. First, the depiction of individual war crimes versus the broader portrayal of mass murders in concentration camps. And the following 2 points, which are strongly related. That is Maya's transformation from victim to Avenger, and the difference between the protagonist taking vengeance into her own hands versus seeking justice through institutional means. Maya's reenactment of her trauma is shown in black and white images that disjointly succeed each other like pulsing light. Moments that, like puzzle pieces, she's trying to make sense of as a whole. There is rape, the ambush, and a group of bodies piled in the forest. But in this film, concentration camps are not present in the visual narrative, although they are mentioned as part of the story. But why does Maya have no memories of the camp where she probably witnessed similar, if not worse, atrocities? The film, in a way, supports Gunther Louis' claim that the Nazi persecution of the Sinti and Roma can be considered a Holocaust because, I quote, "it was in some respects less systematic than the Jewish genocide," at close quotations. In this regard, war crimes like rape and murder are not considered forms of mass extermination in the way murdering humans in gas chambers and disposing of their remains in crematoriums do. Think about the gruesome scenes in Schindler's List and how even films for young audiences like The Boy in the Striped Pajamas and Life is Beautiful manage to portray systematic mass murder. In opposition, Maya and Mira experience only a war crime. In this narrative, Jewish people appear to be the only victims of the final solution and explicitly selected for total extermination, while Romani people were only one of many other groups the Nazi targeted. In that regard, some may say that The Secrets We Keep might not even be considered a Holocaust film, but a personal psychological study of trauma processing that is different from the portrayal of genocide and collective trauma as a sociological phenomenon. Throughout the narrative, Maya transforms from victim to avenger while seeking revenge. I trace Maya's metamorphosis by analyzing the film's costume design. At the beginning, Maya dresses in a feminine fashion, using high heels and a purse. But from the moment she kidnaps Thomas, and as she continues engaging in aggressive activity, she wears masculine clothes, bottom-up shirts, pants, and flat shoes. She also wears a bandana on her head, which reminds us of the diglo worn by black Romani women. Violence erupts together with her now visible Romani identity. And when she wears dresses while engaging in violent behavior, they have patterns that remind the audience of her ethnic origin, as in the case of the black dress with white polka dots. Louis is a foil of Maya. He represents reason. He's gentle, fair, and logical. Louis wants to give Thomas a good trial and the chance to declare and defend himself. Therefore, he looks for evidence that could exonerate his crimes. Maya not only uses questionable means to make Thomas confess, like pouring alcohol down his throat, but resorts to physical torture by chopping one of his fingers with a pair of tweezers. Louis, on the other hand, looks for someone who can corroborate Thomas' version of the story and provides him with medical care and basic aid when he needs it. Maya comes closer to Thomas' wife, Rachel, as an attempt to understand his history. In one of Maya's visits to Thomas' family, Rachel shows her the wedding ring Thomas gave her. Maya realizes that the ring had been stolen from a Jewish victim. Maya takes vengeance not only for herself, but also for Rachel. In a way, she does the dirty work for both of them, Romani and Jewish victims. In the Holocaust film genre, Jews do not seek revenge because they are not vengeful. They are honorable, ethical, and equitable. Jewish victims have no reason to distrust the justice system and its executive arm, the police, since these mechanisms serve them as citizens of the state. In modern Western states, they are not threatened by judicial institutions, and in fact, often hold prominent positions within those institutions. Through official channels, they become lawyers, prosecutors, and judges. The rule of law restricts their desire to punish. If they have to seek revenge for a crime against their people, they act through the Israeli military forces and their fearsome and extremely effective secret service, the Mossad. Films such as Munich and television series like Hunters illustrate how Jewish characters choose to take revenge both historically and fictionally. Documentaries like The Devil Next Door and The Accountant of Auschwitz show how justice will not acquit Nazis without any regard to age and geographic location. Roma in media, on the other hand, exist in the margin of society and rarely occupy positions of power. They are not citizens or political actors. They are more often portrayed as criminals than as lawyers or judges. The secrets we keep follow the same stereotypical formula that portrays Roma as uncivilized and violent. This becomes evident when Luis asks Maya to involve the police after he learns she kidnapped Thomas, and she expressly refuses. It is believed that Roma avoid contact with cops at any cost because police unjustifiably targets them. In the film, Maya follows her own form of conflict resolution, an eye for an eye. In the only scene involving the police, the officer is so comically portrayed as incompetent that the audience understands there is no opportunity to find redemption through institutional means. It would only lead to an unsatisfying result. As in media representation, where Roma take revenge personally, in the film, Maya won't give in and will carry on with her objective until Thomas confesses to her crimes. While there are Holocaust films with Jewish characters that depict retaliation, most of them are based on true stories of personal or collective resistance. Think of The Pianist or the survivor in the case of individual resistance, and in the collective sense, uprising, defiance, the gray zone, escape from Sobibor and Sobibor. Although there are also fictionalized accounts such as Inglourious Basterds, they transcend what is considered plausible and exist within the genre of revenge thriller, emulating blaxploitation films like Jackie Brown. Adler, an Israeli filmmaker whose family most likely died in the Holocaust, decided to portray the story of a non-Jewish woman, perhaps because he wanted to bring visibility to the Romani Holocaust, but most likely because it was controversial to depict Jewish victims taking revenge on their own hands through non-legal means. In his filmography, Adler doesn't shy away from portraying Jewish subjects rooted in the Middle East. In The Operative, the Mossad recruits a woman to work undercover in Tehran, and in Bethlehem portrays the relationship between an Israeli Secret Service agent and a teenage Palestinian informant. But in The Secrets We Keep, he refrains from depicting Jewish suffering. Why? Thomas' final trial involves the public, the ones deciding throughout the film whether Maya has correctly profiled him or if he has been mistaken for somebody else. In the final sequence, Maya and Louis drive Thomas to the woods. An eye for an eye is her way to bring justice to her victims without a fair process, but with an insatiable need to understand what happened that night. Thomas is unable to defend himself, and it seems like his only option is to speak. Well, I won't ruin the end for you. And in case you want to watch the film, I'll refrain from telling you if Thomas dies, and in case he does, who kills him. To conclude, in this presentation, I performed a close reading of The Secrets We Keep and unveiled some of the narrative patterns that draw upon, you could say, anti-Gypsist imagery, softened anti-Gypsist imagery. I did so by contrasting them to patterns in Jewish Holocaust films. Romani and Jewish people were murdered in similar proportions during the Holocaust. Yet Romani victims occupy a reduced and stereotyped space in Holocaust cinema. Adi Joskovitz explains in his book, Reign of Ash, I quote, "Jews and Roma died together at the hand of the same murderers, often in the very same places. But while Jews managed to have their accounts of persecution heard and documented, Roma struggled to gain recognition of everything they had suffered and lost." End of quote. In this regard, it seems like there is an interest convergence that could lead to inter-ethnic solidarity. As Ian Hancock would say, Roma's only friends are Jews. The question is, how do we break free from the Jewish exceptionality framework in Romani Holocaust representation? Answering that question would help us develop counter strategies against the anti-Gypsist gaze. Representation analysis is always central, as it is paramount to understanding how Roma are presented and how they are seen. Ian Hancock says that Romani people are rarely in charge of their own representation. So how can they transform from being portrayed to portraying themselves? How can non-Roma support the work of Romani filmmakers to bring their stories to the forefront without relegating them to what Jelena Savage calls paratextual segregation, that is, mentioning Roma in the epistemic slums of footnotes? And I end with a question: how can we create more inclusive narratives?